Hey guys, my name is Justin. In case y'all don't know me, I've been given the great privilege and honor of leading young adults at Christ Chapel Hampton. Something I don't really take lightly. This week we are on a fellowship week, which means there wasn't a lesson. We're not doing a lesson on fellowship weeks. These are times just to get together, hang out. Sometimes that will be at the church, sometimes it's outside. But don't fret because during these weeks that we have our fellowships, we will still have special episodes of Outside the Circle here on Spotify. Um, these will include testimonies from groups of our members, special one-shot lessons, anything in between. I mean, could be answering questions, could be special holiday ones for things like Easter, or Christmas. We'll probably have some special episodes here and there. So it's just different things, different times. So you just have to keep checking back to see what's going on there. But I figured for the first one, I would just start with sharing with you guys kind of my testimony to just maybe help you understand me a little bit better, who I am and what I'm about and stuff. Um, I do want to start off by saying when I say testimonies, this isn't necessarily means like, oh, I'm a sinner and like God saved me and like that's my story. That is part of your testimony, very much true. For some of us, those are big pieces in the sense of, it takes us a while. Some of us, not always so much. But really, a testimony at the end of the day is not just what happened before God, but what He's done since. Testimonies are constantly being written, constantly being, or constantly changing, because God doesn't just say, "Oh, hey, I saved you," and then leave you for good. Fortunately, He does build us and grow us, and that's good news for all of us. Especially good for me because if it was just about being saved, my testimony would be pretty short. Luckily for me, God has moved many times in my life. Really, too many times to even just share right now because I could literally go on for hours, and I don't want to keep you guys too long with that. Just kind of want to hit some of the high points throughout this. So basically, to kind of just start off, I've been in church pretty much since day one. Literally, my mom was at church Wednesday night. I was born Thursday morning. By that Sunday, I was back at church. So church has always been kind of a thing. The biggest times I really haven't been in church were like transitional periods where we were changing churches for whatever reason. So, but I mean, those were 2, 3, maybe 4 months max usually until we settled on somewhere. But even then, we were visiting different churches, so it's not like I truly missed a lot of time. So for 28 years of my life, I've basically been in church. But with that being said, just because I've always been in church doesn't always mean I've been a saint. So for me, my come to Jesus moment kind of came really early in life. I remember it very vividly. It was a VBS back when I was 7 years old. There was a day they were doing a skit based on the crucifixion of Christ, and I just remember it very vividly because I remember just being terrified of like what was happening to Jesus, and then kind of just became scared of hell itself with how they presented it. And so that night I asked Jesus into my heart, but that was about it. Um, Again, if Jesus, a come to Jesus moment was all that a testimony was, I'd be done there. Fortunately for me, my story wasn't over there, and God wasn't done with me. Um, See, the problem was that I got saved, but that was it. There was never real discipleship or growth after that. And part of that's on me. I didn't really go around telling people. It was just kind of like I did it one night. And it's like, well, that's it. Didn't even get baptized then. It was just kind of one of those things. So really, my come to Jesus moment basically became a fire insurance card. It became a get out of hell free card, basically. And that's kind of where it stayed for years. Again, partially on me. But like I said, I wasn't baptized until I was about 13. We started going to a new church, and when we joined, my parents had already known the decision I made, so they're like, "Hey, yeah, you need to go get baptized. That's what you're supposed to do." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. It should have been done years ago." Part of it was honestly kind of stage fright. Kind of sounds funny, but it was just thinking about getting up in front of everybody. It's kind of crazy. So, but fortunately, they pushed me to do it. Of course, still a nervous wreck, but I'm really glad I did it because it definitely reignited that spark that was there years before. But sadly, because there was no discipleship, it was just a very dim light. Um, it didn't help that most of high school I was in a kind of a depressed state. There's a lot of factors that I'm not really going to get into here. Again, could take a long time. But basically, it was just typical. I want to say typical high school stuff, but there's just a lot. But nothing too. I don't want to say too crazy, not to mention, but just just typical teenage stuff with school, grades, friends, all that, just things that happen. Um, but uh, to really just kind of to put it bluntly, I got to a point um, where I became content with the idea of dying. Not in a way where I tempted the fates per se. Um, I was very fortunate. I never really got to that point. Um, but I did get to a point of feeling like I was a waste of space and that it would have been okay if I just stopped existing, basically. Now that's a bad place to be. But sadly, I just kind of internalized it, didn't really tell anyone, so I was there for quite a while. Fortunately, that was until I met a man named Chase Cochran, man who honestly sent my life in a different trajectory, thanks to time he spent with me. My junior year in high school, he was our youth intern at church, and he fortunately I was one of the older ones in the group, one of the only ones who were really able to drive, so him and I got to spend a lot of time together because of that, because of the way my school schedule worked. I was able to spend time. So we spent a lot of one-on-one time just hanging out, talking about God, all this kind of stuff. It was one of the first times I feel like in my life I was truly discipled, because he really showed me what true discipleship looked like. And I am literally forever grateful to him, because he took what little spark that was left and helped just ignite a bigger fire for God within me. And it's a fire that was pretty solid for a while. Even went to a Christian college thinking I was going to be a youth pastor, but it didn't really work out. A couple of different reasons. Ironically, some of those reasons still wander through my mind with all this with young adults, and yet here I am. God sometimes laughs when we make excuses. Just ask Moses. Um, I mean, honestly, two of my biggest reasons I said that was like, I'm not a public speaker and I can't come up and teach a lesson every week. And yes, I see the irony. But we'll get to that. So yeah, I worked a bunch of different jobs for a while. And honestly, it kind of got me down. Again, didn't really take the traditional route of like going to college. The standard stuff you would do. Meeting a girl, buying a house, getting married, all that. And you start seeing a lot of people your age doing that, and it does get you kind of down. So I kind of got down a little bit because of that. But like I always held on to God, and I just tried to trust Him, even when I didn't always get it. Like I tried my best, but I'm also not gonna sit here and act like that didn't always bother me. When you see other people doing these great things, especially people you went to school with, and then you feeling like, well, I'm working a part-time job, living with my folks, like, it can really get you down very easily. And so, but fortunately, like, along the way, God has put a lot of great people in my life that have really just poured into me over the years. Honestly, I could spend hours and hours naming all of them, but again, don't really want to have this be like a 5-10 hour, little session. So I'm just going to kind of skip ahead a little bit to 2022, because this is when things kind of get interesting and a lot happens in a very short amount of time. One thing I'm not really going to get too much into, there is some personal stuff going on at the time that's not super crucial to the appointment right now. So, but there were some things, I'm just going to kind of leave that out there. Don't really want to bring some of that up, especially in this capacity. But there was some family stuff, and it is what it is. But really, the big issues actually stem from the church life at the time. So I was very deeply ingrained in my last church. I mean, I served in just about any capacity people asked me to. I mean, over my time there, I was on student leadership with the youth. I mean, I'd been in the church for 10 years, so student leadership, children's ministry I'd helped with from time to time, countless VBSs that I signed up for and volunteered for. Even caught me on the preschool hallway once or twice. Preschool's not really my forte, but it's like when they needed it, it's like, hey, here I am. Didn't really do worship team per se, but I definitely helped a lot with them, especially because I was an AV guy, still very much am, still very active with AV, even at Hampton. But AV was definitely where I found my niche. It's where I felt really passionate, where I met a lot of great people. It was just, I mean, I'd been there from the ground up, basically, when it came to AV, because with COVID, we pivoted and we started live streaming like a lot of places started doing. And so we were all kind of learning as we went along. Unfortunately, I was a part of that group that kind of did that. And so, without sounding braggy, but it's like I was one of the top AV guys, kind of the right-hand man to the lady in charge there. And I mean, it was going well. I did have some minor things here and there with the pastor at the time, but it's just like you just kind of shrug them off and just keep going. Get used to the comfort. I mean, again, like I said, I'd been there for almost 10 years, and so, but sadly, one day, honestly, even almost overnight, like all that was just kind of taken away from me. Not really gonna get into this, because I'm not here to bash anyone. I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus, because that's just not the point here. But all I'm really gonna say is that some folks ran their mouth, gossip about me, spread some lies, and bottom line, I basically was removed from AV, which really hurt. I mean, that to me, AV was where I felt like I was being most beneficial to God, so to say. Again, that's where my heart was. That's where my passion was. To me, that's my way of giving back to God is by giving my all to AV, and so to kind of just have it, gone, it really hurt. I mean, it wasn't easy. It was really hard. Had a lot of conversations with God of just being like, why, like, you know how much this means to me, how much, how valuable it is to me, and yet it's just like you took it away, to an extent. And I think now, a lot of it was I wasn't moving on. Like I said, there was some issues already going on, that I kind of just ignored. It's kind of like those family issues that you don't realize are truly issues because, like, your family, you've just learned to deal with them. It's kind of where I was. It's like I've just learned to deal with them, so it's just like, whatever. They're problems. I just ignore it. I just do my best. And that's not exactly always great, So I think it was at a point that I needed to move out, but just out of comfort, I just didn't really do it, especially because I did still have AV for the longest time. Even when other things were bad, I was just like, oh, but, once I was kind of just taken away, I felt like there was nothing there for me. There were a lot of good people that I left behind there, and that one hurt, probably the most of all of it. But at that point, my name had already kind of just been run through the mud, and it got very political, and I think I stayed way past when I should have left. And I sit back now, and I complained to God then about, like, why'd you take it, but honestly, I think that was my wake-up call. Like, I don't want you here anymore, and I wasn't listening, so he had to do something to get my attention, and So, but that definitely developed a lot of, I hate to use the phrase, but it definitely created a lot of church hurt, very jaded me from church, even though I'd already always been a part of it. So because I've always been a part of it and I know what the church should be, like there was never a part of me that says I don't need to be in church, but it was hard to really want to find a place and to really open up and to invest in a new place. But fortunately, about around the time that a lot of this started to take place, Christ Chapel Hampton had opened. And of course, Pastor Hughes over that church. And we go way back, 20 years worth back. You know, I mean, I've known him as long as I can fully remember. Me and his son Will did marching band back in high school. In fact, Will would sometimes gives me rides to and from school from time to time. And I was pretty close with him and kind of his friend group. So we've been really close with that family for a long time. And so that definitely helped with transitioning into that of having a familiar face that you feel comfortable with. So that definitely helped. But it was still hard. Just willing to let yourself go to a place. Just kind of being terrified that, oh, what if the politics start up again? You know, what's to stop it? You know, and you know, so it was difficult, but I just had to do it. You know, it was, you gotta get back in church. You know, like I knew if I let it get to me and I let it distance myself from the church, then I could easily find more reasons not to go, and I didn't need to do that. You know, but like I understand when you get church hurt so bad, you know, sometimes it is hard to open up and to really go find a new one. But it's very crucial that you do. And that's kind of what I learned through all this. So, because trust me, no one feels church hurt more than those who are deeply ingrained in a church. The deeper you are in a church, the worse that hurt's going to be. But, you know, fortunately for me, God definitely provided a familiar and friendly face with Pastor Hugh to really just help welcome me and my family in. And that definitely helped a lot. And it took a couple months, but I finally kind of got bold enough to want to try AV again. You know, to me, very similar to how we use the whole save people, serve people here at Christ Chapel Hampton. That's very much kind of how I've always been. You know, if I'm in a church, I need to be serving. That's just kind of my mentality. It's how I've been for years. So going to church even for those months and not doing anything kind of bothered me. But again, I was terrified to get back into it. I was terrified to really want to try to be a part of a church again after everything that had happened. So, but you know, I did it. And just like God provided Pastor Hugh, God provided Jackie Meacham for that one. You know, she welcomed me in with open arms, and honestly, she let me have a field day back there. I mean, for the longest time, I'm surprised she didn't get really annoyed with me because like I felt like every week I was coming to her, hey, what if we tried this? What if we did this? What if we, you know, sure, whatever, go for it, have fun, enjoy yourself, knock yourself out, you know, like, she ain't told me no yet, so I guess, you know, I ain't doing nothing too wrong. So, you know, that definitely went a long way in not only healing it from having issues with the last pastor to it being a close family friend that honestly feels like family. To even, you know, Jackie just being so open and willing and just letting me be a part of it. You know, that's huge. That went a long way. And honestly, there's countless other people from Christ Chapel Hampton that I could easily mention right now that kind of helped along that way. But I'm also kind of afraid to because I know I'd probably end up missing someone. But the Christ Chapel Hampton family has just been so wonderful and so good and so welcoming. You know, it's definitely the whole church itself has definitely been a godsend. You know, so yeah, so this seemed, that kind of just seemed it. It was working, things were doing better, feeling good. And then this is when the fun really begins. Not in a bad way. It's actually really, really good. Things get crazy, but in a good way. Because a pretty big thing happened back in around September of 2025. And it just got me thinking about a lot of different things. And I mean, my brain never stops anyways, but it was like on overdrive even then. So one Sunday, Pastor Zach, our youth pastor here, him and I are just talking, just chit chatting about Jesus things and stuff. And at the end of it, he was like, "Hey, you want to come speak to the youth one night?" And I was like, kind of going back to my college days, like, I don't do public speaking, and I don't even know what I would say. But fortunately, God kind of provided something for me. Again, all that thinking, he had already stirred up something going, and so, I was able to work on it. In fact, that lesson that I used for the youth that day actually ended up being a modified version of what I ended up using for our first week of young adults, speaking on truth. And so hopefully it was a good one. I've used it twice, so no one's truly complained yet, so we'll see. But crazy enough, talked to him on a Sunday, start working on it that Monday. By Tuesday that week, I get a call from Rich Elliott, who was doing doing a life group at the time, and he called me up and he was like, "Hey, so I won't have time to really get a lesson for this week. Do you mind getting me one?" And I'm just like, okay, well, again, college. I don't do public speaking, and I don't have a lesson. Well, just as luck turns out, Rich already did. Rich knew what he was going to talk about, and he was like, "Hey, it's fine. Here's your topic. End times." Wow, end times. Okay. First time speaking in front of a group. Mind you, a group of adults at that. Most of them were at least 35 and up. And here I am, a 27-year-old kid that it's like, "Hey, speak on end time and Revelations," and I'm like, okay. So he really helped boost my confidence a little bit about, look, I think you got a great head on you, and I think you'll do great, so do it. And I was like, okay, why not? Let's play it out. And apparently I didn't do too bad, because I got promoted from there. It was spoke at Rich's class with Pastor Hugh sitting there, so not only are you doing end times, which is hard, but you got the pastor sitting right there. That makes it even more fun. But then a couple weeks later, I ended up speaking to the youth. Pastor Keith actually sat in for most of that one. And following Wednesday, Hugh comes up to me in class and is like, "Hey, can I speak to you for a second?" And of course, I'm sitting here like, "Oh, great, the pastor wants to talk to me. I done did something wrong." But fortunately, that's not what it was about. And that's when he asked me, do you want to lead young adults? And not gonna lie, I was kind of terrified when he said it. I don't know if you noticed this, but in case you missed it, I don't do public speaking, and I don't make lessons. But the funny part about this is that's not actually fully true. For one, my mouth never stops. I talk for way too much already. It's just doing it more publicly. But not fully realizing it, but ever since my brain started kind of thinking back in September, I kept sitting there like, man, I wish I had a way to share some of my thoughts. Why not? Like, I almost thought about doing a podcast because I should share something. I don't know why. I don't know why my thoughts would be good enough, but I just sat there and I was like, man, I just feel like I got a lot of good ideas. Wish I could share them. honestly, there's even a part of me, especially after Rich's class, of like, what if I had some sort of life group type thing, not necessarily young adults, but some sort of life group thing, just be able to share with people some of the knowledge of God that I've learned over the years. And so, not fully understanding that those had already kind of stirred in me a little bit. But then, like I said, back in when I was in youth, I was on student leadership. And so from time to time, they would ask us to do like these little devotional things. Sometimes when we do certain hangouts, just, 2-3 minute devotional thing. And so back then I had started in a journal, and I would just write some of the ideas when they came to me, and it had sat on a shelf for years and years. And but about 2 years ago, I found it, and just kind of started working on it just randomly. Would just pick it up, just write some things here and there. Just been pretty active with that ever since. Just every so often. So, in both those cases of I can't talk and I don't know how to do lessons, God already had provided for me. I just had to kind of listen and, be open for it. Not realizing that God had laid the groundwork there. So my excuses were literally just me and me being afraid to take that bold step, which kind of leads to the most humorous part. And this is where you look back and just say, well, God, I see what you did there. Like, I don't know, you're almost like, oh, you little scamp, you knew what I needed before I did. And because with the youth, similar to what I did week 1 with young adults, with both of them, I ended with the same challenge from Isaiah, where he tells God, like, hey, here I am, send me. That's what I issued to them. That's what I issued to the young adults week 1. But when I said it in both groups, I made it very clear that this is an open-handed, open-hearted, and open-minded declaration. It means you forget your stuff and you say, okay, God, here I am. What would you have of me? So when Pastor Hugh came up and asked me to lead young adults, felt like God already told me the answer that I'm supposed to say, which is yes. Because if not, I guess I'm kind of just a hypocrite, telling everybody else, hey, look, when God calls you, go for it. Just say, here I am. And then God calls me and I just say, yeah, nah, I'll pass. Kind of makes me a hypocrite. But I'm really glad I did it. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be the leader around here for young adults and just meet some new people and, hopefully just be able to provide a place for people. But again, it's not a task I take lightly. I hope it shows. I hope people feel welcomed here. I hope people feel loved here. I hope people feel like they're getting something, that it's not just me rambling on because I know I can. I hope people are learning. And ultimately, I just hope people are getting connected with God. That's kind of the real heart and drive with sharing this. Like I said early on, the whole reason it's called The Circle is because we meet up in this circle and then we go out to our circles and, share what we've learned. And that's kind of what I'm hoping, Again, when I was younger, there was always a quote I heard that said, wisdom is a circle. What you receive, you must give back. And that's just kind of where I'm at now. Again, God's put a lot of great people in my life that have really helped me grow and learn. And, I'm hoping I can just give a little bit of that back. And so that's kind of what you see, especially more recently with my story, is that God kind of took me out of a toxic and bad situation and worked it out for my good and his glory, even if I wasn't always paying attention. So, really, So I kind of want to just wrap things up in a nice little bow, something to kind of take home with, so to say. I'd say the biggest thing that I hope that people can take away from my story is really just this, that life is a tapestry. We're not going to see every little thread. We're not going to see every time it turns or twists or connects. You try to look at the signs and hopefully you can read them every so often, but God's making a masterpiece. He's weaving not just my life, but everyone's lives, not just individually, but even together, to create this beautiful masterpiece. And again, we're not always going to see the threads, but, hopefully we can cling to Him who will show us the threads when we need them. But I will say, with masterpieces, they often take time. It's usually not something done overnight. And that's kind of the big thing with God is, He's not always going to do it on your timing. And sometimes your timing might just be because you're being stubborn. I can speak to that from mine. Again, should have left a long time ago from a bad situation, and I chose to stick around. So who knows where I could have been had I listened at the right time. But, fortunately, He worked it all together. And that's how the tapestry works, is, God weaves things together. We just have to be patient, hold fast to the Lord. And just really cling to the understanding that He does make everything beautiful in its own time, even if we don't always see it at the time. God worked on me for years, putting people in my life, letting me be a sponge that just soaks up all this Bible knowledge from a lot of these people. He's placed me in the right places at the right time, to get me where He'd like me to be and stuff. And so now hopefully I can share a little bit of that with you guys. Again, wisdom is a circle. What you receive, you must give back, and hopefully that's what you guys take away. When you, like, if you're a part of the circle, even if you're just on this podcast, thanks for listening, first and foremost. But hopefully you are getting something out of it too. Everything we should do should point towards God in some way, because it should all be for Him. All the many blessings He's given us. Least we can do is give back. And again, it's not just about bringing it to this circle. That's partially why the podcast called Outside the Circle. It's about getting outside. It's going to your circles. It's going to the world to share what we learn, so that everybody else can know, to know God and to be loved by Him, because He wants to love us, and wants to be, we were created to be where He's at, and sadly we lost that years ago because of our sin. And so fortunately He didn't give up on us. And fortunately, even after He saves us, he doesn't give up on us. Again, He just keeps working on the masterpiece that is our lives, that He's creating. We just, again, got to take heart. Just because you don't see the threads don't mean they're not working. So that's just kind of a little bit about me. Again, a quick overview. Don't want to waste too much of your time, but I hope you got something out of it. Hope you learned a little bit more about me, what I'm about, and hope to see you next time. Thanks, guys.